On May 31, 2014, a cyclist was riding on his usual path in Waukesha, Wisconsin, when he discovered a 12-year-old girl lying on the ground covered in blood. He called 911 right away, and the ambulance arrived quickly. 5 hours after finding the child, the police arrested 2 other 12-year-old girls while they were walking 5 miles away from the scene near Steinhoffel's furniture store on Interstate 94. The victim, Peyton Leutner, was stabbed 19 times with a 5-inch-long kitchen knife, and the 2 perpetrators, Anissa Weier and Morgan Geiser, didn't deny the accusations. The knife was found in one of the girls' bags when police apprehended them. According to their confession, they wanted to appease Slenderman, the famous faceless giant in the black suit. Morgan told police that, strangely, she didn't feel an ounce of guilt at all. On the other hand, while Anissa did feel some remorse after committing the crime, she believed they had no choice because the dark figure threatened them and their families. They started planning the murder attempt 6 months earlier, in December 2013. They called the attack plot Stabby Stab Stab and claimed they wanted to show sacrifice to the monster, hoping it would appear for them. They hid their plan using code words, so no one would know what they were up to. For instance, they referred to a knife and killing as Cracker, and called their escape plan a camping trip. Morgan's father told investigators his daughter became so obsessed with the fictional creature that she couldn't get it out of her mind, and it completely captivated her. Imagine walking on a dark, desolate street with no one in sight and the last lamp barely flickering. Dead silence lingers around. Even the dogs are asleep. However, you realize you have to keep going beyond the light, straight into the eerie forest. You are hesitant because there are stories about an unknown, faceless monster that lives there, lurking among the trees waiting for its prey. You enter the wooded trail and try to walk through the darkness as quietly as possible. Not even animals make noise, but suddenly, you hear the crackling of small branches. It must be a squirrel, you think to yourself as you continue walking. But the sound gets closer and closer, almost tangible. Then you turn around and see an enormous, faceless monster in a suit with tentacles emerging from its back. And then... This is one way to describe the Slenderman phenomenon, of which there are countless variations. Slenderman's uniqueness lies in the fact that he is the first well-known monster of the internet and our digitalized world, created by us, the online community. We've probably all encountered it already in some form or another. While Slenderman's origins can be traced back perfectly, the question isn't whether it exists or not. With monsters like this, it's never a debate. It's more about whether we believe in it or not, and the difference is huge. The legend of Slenderman, which began on an online forum, has had a profound psychological effect on its creators and fans. Unfortunately, there have already been instances where people have committed crimes in the name of the fictional character. To understand the nature of the demon, we must travel back in time until June 8, 2009, when Slenderman was born on somethingawful.com, where a Photoshop competition was held under the Create Paranormal Images thread, inviting users to submit their otherworldly creations. One of the participants, Eric Knudsen from Florida, who went by the username Victor Surge on the forums, uploaded 2 black and white images, both showing a group of unidentified children with a tall, menacing figure in the background. It was clear from the beginning that Victor Surge photoshopped it into the images and called it Slenderman. He even added quotes to each, further fueling the mystery of his work. One of them was the following: "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them, but its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time. 1983. Photographer unknown, presumed dead." And the quote under the second photograph was, "One of 2 recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day that 14 children vanished and for what is referred to as the Slender Man. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at the library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence. 1986. Photographer, Mary Thomas. Missing since June 13, 1986. Since then, the slim, long-armed humanoid has captured the imaginations of thousands. and many have begun to expand its mythology even further. The creator of Slenderman stated that he was inspired by various sources, such as Stephen King, H.P. Lovecraft, and the surreal imaginings of William S. Burroughs, but movies and video games, including Silent Hill and Resident Evil, also helped him form the idea of the Slender Man, as well as the ominous Mothman and the shadowy group of men in black. He said, "The most direct influences were Zach Parsons' That Insidious Beast, the Stephen King short story The Mist, the essay tale regarding the Rake, reports of so-called shadow people, Mothman, and the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. I used these to formulate something whose motivations can barely be comprehended, and causes general unease and terror in a general population." Slenderman also closely resembles one of DC's lesser-known superheroes, the Question, who wears a suit and has no face. In addition, his secret identity is Victor Sage, a name very similar to Knudson's Victor Surge. Despite the giant having numerous origin stories, they all have one thing in common. He mostly targets children, but adults are in danger too, because his presence can cause unconsciousness and amnesia, and some might even die as a result of the encounter. Children often build a special bond with the entity, and Slenderman is eventually responsible for their disappearance. The symbol of the villain is a circle with an X drawn through it. It can teleport and cause interference with electrical devices, and is most commonly associated with abandoned forests, parking lots, and buildings. The fictional figure also fits into centuries-old tendencies. Other similar monsters and unknown creatures who kidnap children appear basically everywhere from Japan to Germany and Scotland, and the sole purpose of their stories is to scare misbehaving children. A plethora of images, videos, and animations depicting Slenderman began to spread across the internet in the 2010s, and today we even have movies and an absolutely terrifying video game inspired by the apparition. Shortly after posting the first pictures, Victor Surge provided additional ones. In one instance, he edited an image of a skeleton to resemble a long-armed ancestor of Slenderman, creating a sort of origin story for the blank-faced stalker. In 2011, he also wrote a description. The Slender Man is a supernatural creature that is described as appearing as a normal human being, but he is described as being 8 feet tall, and he has vectors or extra appendages that are described to be as sharp as swords. The creature is known to stalk humans and cause many disappearances. He is described as a shadow creature that has a missing face. The creature fits into many mythologies and legends from nations such as Germany and Celts, which brings up the possibility that he could be real. The monster rarely kills but is responsible for numerous disappearances and persuades others to commit murder or suicide. Aside from the already mentioned symptoms, its presence can cause paranoia, delusions, vision distortion, the feeling of sickness, and sometimes nosebleeds. Unfortunately, the legend has already gone beyond fiction, because real human beings wanted to kill because they were obsessed with Slenderman, with the Waukesha stabbing case being the most well-known example. During the trial of the 2 girls, authorities elaborated on the situation and showed Morgan Geyser's frightening drawings of Slenderman and a cat-like creature armed with a scythe. "I love killing people," she wrote over one, "and I want to die over another." Investigators found more than 60 similar drawings in the girls' bedroom. The police also collected the girls' 6 Barbie dolls, which were all mutilated and scribbled with a red felt-tip pen as if they were bleeding, and she even left the monster's symbol on some of the toys. Investigators learned that Anissa and Morgan lured the 12-year-old Peyton into the woods with the promise of playing hide-and-seek. The 3 6th graders were classmates. Morgan Geyser and Peyton Leutner even became best friends in school after the 2 struggled socially. The 3 children had a sleepover at Geyser's home, where they celebrated her birthday, which was actually on May 16th, 2 weeks before the incident. They skated and had frozen yogurt together, and for Peyton, nothing seemed suspicious. Morgan's sometimes unusual behavior was the only thing she noticed. Something was strange because at all of our past sleepovers, Geyser always wanted to stay up all night because she could never do that at home, but on the night of the birthday party she wanted to go to bed, she told ABC News. However, the next day, instead of a joyful game, they attacked the little girl. Peyton had the strength to crawl out to the nearby road, and authorities learned that it was Anissa who encouraged Morgan to slay Peyton. Otherwise, Slenderman would have harmed them and their families. Many people do not believe Slenderman is real. We wanted to prove the skeptics wrong, one of the girls said according to the criminal complaint. Psychologist Deborah Collins was assigned to the case, and she stated that after several interviews with Morgan, there was no doubt she believed in the existence of Slenderman. Her belief hasn't wavered, and it's been unyielding to a rational perspective, Collins testified. The expert mentioned that the girl told her she uses Vulcan mind control to keep negative emotions at bay, and believes Harry Potter villain Lord Voldemort visits her when he's not away on business trips. During the investigation, officials revealed that Morgan had been experiencing hallucinations since childhood, including ghosts, imaginary friends Maggie and Sev, and a man named It. Authorities noticed her frequently talking to herself and pretending to be a cat. On October 22, 2014, Geyser was eventually diagnosed with early-onset childhood schizophrenia, and it was later discovered that her father was also schizophrenic. Lawyers tried to emphasize that Slenderman's threats had a severe effect on their mental state, especially on Morgan, and that the two girls' only motivation for the attack was to protect themselves and their families. Fortunately, Peyton survived the attack. She had wounds all over her body. Her liver and stomach were both damaged, and one of the stabs missed a major artery less than a millimeter away from her heart. If the knife had gone the width of a human hair further, she wouldn't have lived, said Dr. John Kellerman, who operated on Leutner. When she woke up after the 6-hour emergency surgery, her first question was about her attackers and whether the police had caught them. Peyton's recovery was difficult, both physically and emotionally. She was able to leave the ProHealth Waukesha Memorial Hospital 7 days after the attack and started school in September, 3 months after the nearly fatal murder attempt. It turned out that the two underage assailants had originally intended to kill her in her sleep at the Geyser residence. However, they changed their plans and decided to do it the next morning in the nearby Davids Park. When Peyton woke up, she found that her two classmates had already gone downstairs to the computer, so she joined them. The three ate some donuts, after which Geyser suggested they should visit the park. This was also strange because otherwise she wouldn't have been allowed to go there without an adult, but her mother eventually agreed because of her daughter's birthday, and she wouldn't be alone. However, their plan to just simply kill Peyton in the park changed again, because Morgan proposed playing hide-and-seek in the surrounding woods. At one point, Anissa told Peyton to lie down and cover herself with sticks and leaves to hide, but this was just a trick to get her down. Then the horrible attack occurred, after which Geyser and Wire left Peyton to die, but she still had the strength to seek help. I got up, grabbed a couple trees for support, I think, and then just walked until I hit a patch of grass where I could lay down, she said. Luckily, a cyclist found her at the end of Big Bend Road and immediately called 911. Due to the nature of the offenses, Anissa and Morgan were charged as adults. Geyser was charged with attempted first-degree homicide, a Class A felony, while Wire faced charges of attempted second-degree homicide, a Class B felony. The girls pleaded guilty, but Waukesha County Circuit Court ultimately found them not guilty because of their mental condition, and both were sent to mental health institutions. On December 21, 2017, Anissa Wire, 16 years old at the time, was sentenced to 25 years to life, and on February 1, 2018, Morgan was sentenced to 40 years to life. Both were indeterminate sentences requiring at least 3 years of confinement, in addition to involuntary treatment in a state forensic psychiatric institute. Anissa's older brother William later recalled, "If you looked at my younger sister, you'd see a normal, happy 12-year-old. She's just got a couple of weird interests. Personally, I think she found Slenderman on YouTube, took an interest, and then read up on it. She was very quiet, she kept to herself, But she was happy-go-lucky, so this is completely out of the blue, he added. In 2021, she submitted a letter to the court saying, "I am sorry and deeply regretful for the agony, pain, and fear I have caused. I take full responsibility for my actions." She was 19 by then, and on September 13th, after 7 years in custody, she was granted an early release from Winnebago Mental Health Institute, 88 miles north of Waukesha, but she will be under communal supervision until she turns 37. The victim's family was disappointed when they heard the news. Steve Lyons, the spokesman for the Leutners, said they wished she would have served a longer sentence, but they had also been mentally prepared for that day for a long time. Judge Michael Boren ruled that Wire cannot contact Peyton until 2039. She must wear a GPS ankle monitor, live with her father, and obtain permission before leaving Waukesha County. However, the GPS device was removed on September 11th, 2023, but her online activity remains restricted and monitored. For instance, she cannot use any form of social media. Peyton gave her first interview to ABC News in 2019. "I've come to accept all of the scars that I have. It's just a part of me. I don't think much of them. They will probably go away and fade eventually," she said. She also shared that Morgan was someone she could trust, and she seemed like a happy girl who told a lot of jokes and was great at drawing. However, Geyser started talking more and more about Slenderman after a while. "I thought it was odd. It kind of frightened me a little bit, but I went along with it. I was supportive because I thought that's what she liked," Leutner recalled. Morgan's obsession with the fictional creature continued and terrified Peyton to the point she even considered ending their friendship. "I saw the change from 5th to 6th grade when she met Anissa. That's when I was really wanting to get out of that friendship," she said, and also mentioned that she never liked Wire because she was always cruel to her. Peyton stated she only hung out with Wire because of Morgan. In addition to the Waukesha incident, more 2014 attacks are linked to the Slenderman legend. A 13-year-old girl from Ohio used a knife to assault her mother, while a 14-year-old girl in Florida set their family home ablaze with her mother and 9-year-old brother inside. It was revealed that she had been obsessively reading Slenderman stories online before committing the arson. In early 2015, a series of suicide attempts took place in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation among young people between the ages of 12 and 24. One of the Oglala Sioux leaders stated that locals believe in a suicide spirit similar to Slenderman. Shira Chess, a mass media arts professor at the University of Georgia, researched the Slenderman phenomenon following the stabbing attack. The expert explained that Slenderman is basically a stalker, a creature who follows and harasses people, and once you notice him, he becomes interested in you. The original forum and internet users went crazy for the horror creature after the two photoshopped images because they felt it was completely different. Chess compared the Slenderman myth to Romanian and German fairy tales, as well as vampire folklore, and said that the demon is a metaphor for helplessness, power differentials, and anonymous forces. As the community started branching out around the internet, they found other folklore bases that helped to reinforce the Slenderman myth. There are certain stories that are traditional folklore that were then reinforced by what was already in their mythology, and so that just helped. And of course, all of that makes it look more real, she said. Chess also highlighted that Slenderman had helpers in some stories, which could have inspired the two girls to conspire so that they too could become proxies for the pale monster. Slenderman has proxies, but it's not the way that they were doing it. In the fictions, there are people that have been driven crazy by the Slenderman. They do not quite work at his bidding, but they do crazy things because of Slenderman, the professor added. The grade schoolers even told police that following the sacrifice, they wanted to get to the creature's home, which they called the Slender Mansion in the Nicolet National Forest, about 300 miles north of the crime scene. Chess mentioned that such headquarters had never appeared in the Slenderman stories, showing how the girls drifted from reality and added their own elements to the Slender universe. The assault was caused by the two girls' inability to distinguish between fiction and reality. Parents should take note of this case and teach their children the difference, especially in the all-digital 21st century when youngsters spend half their lives on the internet in front of displays overwhelmed by easily accessible, uncensored content. Following the Waukesha incident, local police chief Russell Jack warned that the Slenderman stabbing should be a wake-up call for all parents and that the internet is full of dark and wicked things. After leaving the hospital, Peyton didn't want to be alone at night, so she slept with her mother for a while. To this day, she keeps a pair of broken scissors under her pillow, just in case. In December 2015, Morgan Geyser began a consistent, long-term regimen of antipsychotic medication, which enabled her to understand what she had done and display appropriate feelings related to her crime, such as guilt and remorse. She became the youngest patient at Winnebago Mental Health Institute. In 2020, the appeals court rejected Geyser's petition to be retried as a juvenile, and in January 2024, she petitioned the court for release, but it was denied in April. The tale of the otherworldly monster created by the internet ignited the imaginations of many, but also led to several tragic incidents. Slenderman may not be the last fictional supernatural being to emerge in our time, so it is important for everyone to remember that this is just fiction, it isn't real, and it cannot cause any harm. After the Waukesha incident, Slenderman's popularity started to wane, but it still remains one of the most well-known ghostly characters. For a few years, the pale giant became a pop culture icon, but today many of the original forums and related blogs are either inactive or have shut down. The attack on Peyton Leutner prompted the creator, Eric Knudsen, to issue a statement. "I am deeply saddened by the tragedy in Wisconsin, and my heart goes out to the families of those affected by this terrible act," he said. He stated he would not be giving interviews on the matter, and a few years later, he stopped developing the myth of Slenderman.